these games are the fun games. These are the fun games, the competitive, the challenging games, and to see where you really stand.
Tonight's Chuck Smith Show, presented by Ulmer's Appliance Service, is also brought to you by our loyal sponsors. Charlie's Bar and Restaurant, located at 800 Shore Road in Summers Point. Meet your friends at Charlie's at the shore since '44. Chico & Son Sub Shop, located at 1620 Tilton Road, Northfield. Choose the #1 sub shop in South Jersey. And the Docks Place, located at 646 Bay Avenue in Summers Point. Book your dinner reservations now at 609-926-0404. Thank you for your support of Mainland Regional Football.
But when you have a solid program, a lot of that can take over what an individual might do. Before he releases the ball, he takes a shot right as he releases it here. And for him to stand in there in the face of that, and that's just the confidence that he has. And I found myself just trying to catch my breath for a bit because of the excitement and just the pressure of that moment. This is a game that the kids, you live for.
This is the Chuck Smith Show on Cape Atlantic Live, presented by Ulmer's Appliance Service. Now, here's Coach Smith and your host, Nick Kosko.
What's going on, everybody? Welcome into the Chuck Smith Show right here on Cape Atlantic Live. I'm your host, Nick Kosko, and with me, as always, is Mainland head coach Chuck Smith. Coach, good to talk to you again. 2 wins in a row for your Mainland Mustangs, now 4-3 on the season. Fresh off a big win over rival EHT, 54-6. Get a big game on Friday night against Winslow on the road, top-ranked public school in the state, number 6 overall in the state as well, the defending state champs in Group 4. But we'll start with Friday night, a record-setting night for you guys in terms of individuals. We'll get into that in a second, but we'll just start out. You guys got it done offensively, defensively, and with special teams. Total rout on Friday, and one of the more complete games you guys have put together all year.
Yeah, it was a great start of the game for us, Nick, as you said, on homecoming night, big crowd there at the corral, and we needed to come out of the gate fast and assert ourselves. We knew that. And the kids did that. They answered the bell right away, right from the get-go. Dominant performance on offense and defense. I know EHT is a little bit young, a little green there, and a lot of inexperienced players out there. But, I was very proud of the way we came out and executed the first half the other night.
With the offense, a lot of guys got carries again. I know Liam Kennedy was a little bit more involved running the football again. Even Andrew Gilman got some carries towards the latter stages of the first half. I believe in the second half as well before you guys ended up pulling the starters. I know Chase Hogue is banged up right now and, not coming back for this week anyway. He didn't play on Friday night. But when you talk about it all the time, running back by committee, next man up, and what went into the move of giving Andrew some carries this time? He's a big tight end for you guys, play some defense as well, but he now got some carries. Now he's getting into the mix in terms of that backfield, and it might be another weapon for you guys to have.
Yeah. I always feel I never have enough running backs. So, we're just moving some kids around. I think we had 7 kids carry the ball the other night.
Yeah.
We really didn't want to emphasize the quarterback run game, take him out of the mix and let the other guys handle the load. And, Andrew's a very athletic, big kid with a lot of speed. And we're just looking at another way of just trying to utilize his tools and, put a little package together just for him to do some other things than just playing at tight end the whole time. And worked out pretty well for the first game.
Mm-hmm. It was actually pretty funny. We noted it on the broadcast on Friday night too. So he it looks like he runs in for a touchdown. I don't have that highlight up, but because obviously he was ruled that he stepped out of bounds, but he ended up catching a touchdown a couple plays later. So that was actually his first touchdown reception of the year. I don't know. We watched it back. I mean, did the referees just simply explain, hey, he stepped out of bounds? It looked like from our vantage point, I don't know. That could have been a nice little 30-yard touchdown run for him.
Well, he said he stepped out of bounds, but I was standing right on the sideline, and I had a pretty good angle of it too, and I didn't think he stepped out of bounds. But we were able to get the score anyway.
Yeah. Hey, it's pretty good to know that he can tightrope the sideline a little bit too. So it just goes to show that athleticism that you were talking about. As far as defense is concerned, you guys were pitching a shutout. I know there was a running clock at the end of the game, and the backups got a little play as well, and then the shutout was erased on that final drive. But overall, very dominant performance by you guys. Multiple turnovers caused. What can you say about your defensive performance, particularly in that first half?
Yeah, it was dominant as you said. We held them. I think it was to negative 13 yards rushing overall on the night, and most of their yards came on that last drive. We had our JVs in, and I thought our JVs played well against their starters. held them to a couple third down situations. And, the touchdown play on the last play of the game was a 4th and 15, I think, and they hit a little pass and took it in for a touchdown. But I thought our JVs played well also. I thought we did a good job against the pass. We had some pressure on the quarterback through the night, a couple of interceptions back there, and those interceptions led to turnovers, which turned the ball over to us on offense to convert to points. And, it was a very dominant performance on the defensive side.
I'd be remiss if I didn't mention some of the JV guys that got in at the end. I know sophomore quarterback Ryan Scannell got some reps and was able to throw the ball a little bit. Senior, who I know we talked about him a couple weeks ago, Finn Hitchner, he was getting some time with the varsity. What was that? A couple weeks ago. Obviously a senior transfer, new atmosphere, new state even, but he got into the end zone as well. So you can imagine the second half for the seniors who got a little bit more playing time, and obviously the young Bucks, I would say, pretty good night to see your second unit get a lot of good positive plays on film. You
don't get those opportunities too often during the season to play the younger guys, and they're the ones getting their rear ends kicked all week long in practice by the older guys. They're holding the bags or in drill work and stuff like that. And when you can get an opportunity to get them some time under the big lights and on a Friday night, it's really neat. And even the older guys pull for those kids because they're they're in practice all the time. They're with them. Great camaraderie. And, we're cheering for them. And we told them at halftime, hey, our goal's still a shutout. We still want to score points. And we were able to do those two things with the guys. It was nice to see them out there having fun.
Without a doubt. So let's get into a couple highlights from the game on Friday. We'll start out with this one. First record setter, Nate Kosko, your senior kicker, arguably one of the best kickers in South Jersey history, but now he has a record to his name, most extra points in New Jersey high school history. And, it's 200 plus counting now, and he still has plenty of games left to play in his senior year to keep it going. So that was his extra point. And I know you're going to end up, at least in this highlight, walk over to him. And just a great honor here for Nate Kosko just to keep his tremendous career going.
Yeah, I really had no idea about the record. In the offseason, Tom Williams had contacted me that he was a few kicks away from being the Cape Atlantic League all-time leading scorer, I think, kicking point-wise. And then Kevin Minnick, one of the local South Jersey writers for high school football, reached out to me, and we were talking about it. He said, hey, I think he's a kick away from breaking the record now, one more extra point away. And it just seems surreal to me because, this group of seniors, so many of them played as freshmen, and most of them played in a backup role, other than Johnny coming in at quarterback and starting the very first game of his career at there. And also, people forget Nate Kosko stepped on the field that same day as our kicker. And I think at that time he was still 13 years old, and he was probably 5'7", 155 pounds. And now I think he's like 6'1", 190 pounds, big for a kicker. And, he's had a tremendous career, over the course of, we've scored a lot of points, obviously, over these last 4 years during his career. And he's been very consistent. I would have to say, in all my years being at Mainland, probably, and we've had some great kickers in the past, probably one of the most consistent kickers on PATs that I've ever seen at Mainland. We've had, guys that were all state, all South Jersey and everything over the years. But for the amount of kicks that he has had, he's been the most consistent, and he's number one almost every record category except for maybe field goals, because we haven't really kicked a lot of field goals. We've been scoring touchdowns, thank God. But he's done a great job. And I think the biggest thing, you always look for how kids can improve year to year. And, when you throw somebody in there as a true freshman to play, you wonder what's going to be like a couple years down the road. Those leaps and gains, are they going to minimize, or is that going to be a big jump in productivity or, improvement? And Nate has become not only a great kicker, but his kickoffs have been tremendous this season. One of the goals I told him this offseason was, hey, we need you to get touchbacks. I know just being an offensive guy, when you got to start your own 20 or inside bat, versus a return to get you out to the 35 or something, it's a big difference. And he's been great at that. We've had, I think he's kicked more touchbacks this year than he had in the previous 3 years combined.
Wow.
And he also developed into a really good punter. Last year, he made all South Jersey as a punter. And, he's done that, very, reliable in that regard over 2 seasons. And last year, that was one of the things going to Penn. They were looking for a dual purpose kicker. which you don't see that often in college
Right.
football. Somebody that does both, and that's what they were looking for. And obviously, Nate fits that category, and we've just been blessed to have him. And hopefully, we have a great run coming up in the playoffs so he can continue this.
Yeah, he's going to be an Ivy League man next year at Penn, along with a couple other guys on your team. It's interesting because you mentioned that the touchback is such a weapon. You know, people forget, especially in high school football, it still goes out to only the 20-yard line. So it's a gigantic weapon at that level. I believe he's missed, I would say, off the top of my head, I think just maybe less than 10 extra points in his career.
Yeah.
If that, maybe 10, if that. So when you mentioned the consistency, it's there for Nate Cashy. So over 200 extra points and counting. Maybe a couple field goals here and there the rest of the way as well. So we'll continue on with the highlights here. I wanted to highlight Luke Kerrigan. Beautiful interception at the end of the first quarter. You guys are up by 2 scores, and this erased any momentum he had on offense.
Yeah, Luke has really come around this season. The senior getting his first chance to really start and playing meaningful minutes this year. And he's gotten better every single week in the secondary. He's played a little bit of corner for us. He's been a backup receiver for us on offense. Playing on special teams, and really has come into his own at safety in our secondary. And he's got a couple interceptions on the year. He's got great hands, great ball skills, and that just shows it right there. Just the effort and concentration to pull that in, and like you said, kill any momentum they had, of a big play right there.
Yeah, he just sold out for that interception, which was tremendous. And speaking of other records, Jake Blum, now your new all-time receiving leader for career yardage. He broke Kyle Davis's record, which is, funny enough, is his cousin's record. So he broke that record. He's now second all-time in catches. I think he's up to 72, 73, if I remember correctly. He had 7 or 8 catches on Friday night. So he's second behind Kyle Davis in terms of receptions for a career, but he also is now tied for first in touchdowns with 18, which ties Jamie Tyson, for those who remember, just graduated 2 years ago, was a big integral part to your state championship program just 2 years ago. And obviously Ryan Abdia both have 18 apiece, and now Jake joins them on that stage. And this was the tying touchdown. And I think if my math was right, I believe this is where he also broke the receiving yardage record as well.
Yeah, Jake's a great athlete. Saw that when he came in freshman year also. I always say there's nobody like Cohen Cook, but he was like a Cohen Cook 2.0, just could do anything and everything. You could play him at he would start on teams at quarterback. He could start at running back. Obviously a great receiver. He was all South Jersey last year at all state as a defensive back, all South Jersey as a wide receiver last year. Our ball, he returns punts for us, kickoffs. He's our holder, and he's done a great job of holding PATs and field goals for us over the last couple of seasons. And he's had, he had a slow start to the season due to a off-season surgery and recovery from the surgery. Then he had a concussion during the season. So it's been a little bit of an up and down year for him, but it was great to see him get his wheels rolling and break those records and, have a shot still at the all-time receptions record also. I think if, we're able to be fortunate to win a couple games in the playoffs, I think that record will be his also. And, I've been blessed I coached his cousin, back in the day. And I remember Bob Coffey yelling at me because I put his cousin in as a freshman out there, and Coffey started yelling at me about who put him out there, and it all worked out though. And, to have seen his cousin break all those records way back when, and now all these years later, his cousin breaking his records, it's a really cool thing, and his cousin's his number one fan, besides his mom and dad. His cousin's at all the games and was there Friday night to see what happened. So,
yeah, it's really cool to see. So, and again, with a couple of regular season games left and potentially a handful of playoff games, if not more, on the docket here in 2025, plenty of opportunity for him to, maybe be number one by himself in all 3 of those categories, which would be, then you can make the argument maybe he's the best receiver in school history, or, he'll at least have the numbers to back that one up. So we'll move ahead now, as you guys are now 4-3, as we mentioned. 2 more games to go on this 2025 regular season. Winslow on the road this week, and you're going to host Delsea to end the regular season. But first things first, the Winslow Eagles are up first, defending Group 4 state champions. And as I mentioned before, they're ranked 6th in the state, according to NJ.com, and the number 1 public school in the state. So I know it's a lot right there to handle, but you guys have seen them over the past couple of years, and a lot of these players as well. A lot of these players have been able to play when they were young and now develop as some of your guys have as well. But I guess right off the bat, what your general sense of Winslow? I know we've alluded to them coming up, but now it is that time of year where you have them come up in 3 days.
Yeah, they're good, man.
Yeah.
They're hyped up to be fast, good ball players. We've seen them the past couple of years, like you said. We saw them in the semifinals a couple of years ago. We were fortunate enough to pull out a victory at their place. Last year, we were in a really good game with them. I think we might have given them one of their best games of the season last year. We had a chance to really get it going in the first half. Had a couple calls go against us, and but we hung in there and battled with them. But they're a very good football team. They're not even close to being the biggest team that we faced this year.
Right.
But they by far are the best team that we will face this year. They're just got great speed. Their defensive line is very quick off the football, cause all kinds of havoc across the offensive line and into the backfield. Great athletes on the back end of that. Then you turn over to offense and, it's like they come out, they run the ball, and they got the speed there with their backfield, and their line does a good job blocking. And then their quarterback, he's one of the best quarterbacks I've seen in a while. Just great pocket presence, very accurate when he has the time to throw the football. And he's got great, skill set of receivers out there to catch the ball and make little plays go into big plays. They're the real deal. They're the real deal,
Yeah, looking back at last year's schedule, you guys fell 47-24 at your place, but score maybe not indicative of the entire game, as you mentioned before. It was quite a battle in that first half before, a couple things went their way and they pulled away from it. But other than that, they had one tight game against Millville in the state semifinals as Millville almost made another state championship run just last year. That was a 13-7 ball game, Coach, and you guys put up the most points against them just last year. And again, I know that's last year, two different teams this year, but it's a nice little indication of the competitive level with Winslow. You mentioned Jalen Parker, their quarterback. He has over 1,600 yards already on the season, 18 touchdowns. Nakeem Powell, a force on the ground at running back, and Nakir Helton, obviously with Coach Bill Belton at the helm. But Nakir, he's going to Boston College. He's already a BC commit. He's their most effective, or I would say leading wide receiver. So you mentioned before the weapons are all over the place. When you have to contain an offense like that, is it about just simply, you can't stop it? I think we said this last year with a couple of teams too, like a Millville, like a Winslow. You have to try to, I guess, pick them off in certain spots and contain them. Is it mostly just pressure on the quarterback and just winning those battles up front?
Well, it's a variety of things, because if you sit in one thing all the time, they're good enough staff. They're going to all of a sudden realize that and move to something else. So you can't stay in one thing the whole time. You got to really mix it up with your pressure schemes, your coverages, and things like that to have a chance to get them. I think the biggest thing with us too is we're going to have to do a tremendous job of tackling, tackling in space. They're guys, if we reach and grab, we're not going to get them. We have to run our feet to their feet and wrap and pursue to the ball and swarm tackle people, bottle them up. They're good. They're going to make plays. They're going to make plays. They're too good not to make plays. You can't contain them the entire night. You just hope you do a good job of containing them most of the night. And I think on defense, it's just a matter of mixing things up and really doing just a great job of pursuit and tackling.
Yeah. With looking at their defense, I mean, again, another defense with guys who play both ways, athletes all over the place. And you mentioned they're not the biggest team that you have faced all year. I know. I mean, you look at a team like EHC just last week, big team, but at Winslow, I guess because of their athleticism and their technique and just their schemes, and you put it all together, that's what makes a great football team that you're going to see this Friday. But guys like Benjamin Carr on the defensive line, I saw Mekhi McNair, one of their DBs. He's all over the place. He has over 30 tackles this year too. What is it about their defense? Are they just completely fat? Are they just fast to the football and they're constantly flying to the ball carrier? What makes their defense so good?
They're aggressive, very aggressive across the board. All 11 players are aggressive. Their defensive line isn't really big, but they get off the ball. They get off the ball and they wreak havoc. They're always moving, lots of line stunts, things like that. Hard to simulate that in practice, but they fly to the football. They're very aggressive. They love to hit, and it shows on the film, watching all the film of them this year. They're just one of those teams. I mean, we really have to be, smart on offense with what we're doing schematically, and taking care of the football. We can't get into a battle where we're turning the ball over and giving them a short field and things like that. We got to really hold on to the football on Friday night to have a shot.
when you look at a game like this, and I think we said something similar last year because you guys were coming off a state championship, but again, brand new, not a brand new team, but you graduated a big senior class after the 2023 season. So, and then Winslow, obviously the trajectory that they've been on, state semis and then now state champs just last year, looking to repeat as you guys were last year. Is this, I guess I don't want to call it a measuring stick game, but it's similar to last year with the strength of schedule that you guys have had last year and this year with this division. Is it a way to kind of measure, especially as you guys are not in the same playoff group anymore, where it's like, hey, win or lose, if we're in this football game, maybe we know we can compete with pretty much anybody that's remaining on our schedule?
Yeah, I think one of the things our team has learned this year, outside of the Atlantic City game, because we just weren't ready for that one.
Yeah.
We had the Millville game. We played it. We should have beat them. Millville's a better team than 2-4, whatever our record is right now.
Yeah.
We had the Prep. Prep's a very good football team, and we were right down to the wire with those two teams till the waning moments of the game, and it just went the other way for us. And I think if anything that was learned from those lessons was we can play with anybody.
Yeah.
I think sometimes high school kids especially just look at records and they look at the scores of games and they get wowed by that, and maybe that gets into their psyche a little bit. But, I think what we've learned this year is, you throw all that outside noise away. You worry about yourself, and that you can play with anybody. As long as you play a good, sound game, you can play with anybody. What will happen on the field will happen on the field, and we'll see what the outcome is. But we're going in there, ready to compete on Friday night. We're not going in there just to show up and play against Winslow and see what happens. We're going up there with a purpose, because this game is big for us because, for us, we're right in the middle of the pack in the playoff hunt. And it doesn't look like there's a lot of movement going on, but a win on Friday night really could move us in the right direction, from maybe a home game to maybe possibly 2 home games. So there's motivation for us also in this game, and it being a division game too, to move us up in the standings for the division also. So, we're going there with a purpose, and we're not just going up there to show up and, get on the bus and then come home again, and worry about the next week. We're going there totally focused on putting out our best effort on Friday night and coming home with a victory.
6 p.m. on Friday night at Winslow. Mainland takes on the Eagles, another big division game for you guys in the American division. Coach, I'll leave you here with this one, I guess along the same lines of you guys are going in there for a purpose. It's not just one of those games where it's like, yeah, well, we know how good they are. It's pretty obvious, but we're just going to go there and, just see what happens. Like, no, you're going in there for, you want to be competitive, try to get scrape out a win and come home with that 5th win of the season. What is that just been the hammering home type of message for the players this week? I know, granted, I would imagine most of these guys know the challenge they're up against, especially the guys who have been around the block over the last couple of years, haven't seen this team twice now over the last 2 years. But have you been just pretty much hammering home that message for Friday night?
Yeah, kind of. We talked about it earlier in the week, as we get going. And a couple of weeks ago, we really said it, after the Prep game. Yeah. This is like the stretch now, the playoff run that you're on, trying to get a good seed in the playoffs, tune up everything, so you're sharp when all of a sudden these big games, these are all money games to us now, they're all money games. They all mean something. Even EHT meant something to us, so this game means just as much as any of those other games before that. And that's all we're worried about right now. And, you want to be your best, when you play the best, you want to be your best. And, we're playing, like you said, the top ranked public school in the state of New Jersey, and they've earned it and they deserve it. And, it's a good challenge for us, and we're excited to have that challenge. We really are. It's a lot better playing a team like that than, playing some team that's and whatever, and you're expected to go in there. And like a lot of times like that, those games aren't fun. Even though you win by a big score, they're not fun. They're not fun. Yeah. These games are the fun games. These are the fun games, the competitive, the challenging games, and to see where you really stand. Hey, we're going against the number 1 team in the state. We've had a hard schedule the last couple of years. We're surviving it. We've taken our lumps here and there, more so this year than last year. But, you just hope you're healthy, and you really hope that when you play these games, it gets you ready for the second season. You wonder, how good are these other teams going to be in the playoffs? Not that anybody can't beat anybody, but sometimes your regular season games tend to be a little bit harder than the playoff games wind up being, And, we've learned that. If anything we learned last year was that, we had a very tough schedule, and we got to the playoffs, and it was kind of, I don't want to say it was easy, but it wasn't the same as some of the teams we played against during the regular season.
Yeah, I was going to say, I mean, outside of the state championship run 2 years ago where you guys, pretty much throttled through everybody, but I would say last year and maybe even 2022 when you guys made it to the state state semifinals that year, where it was like, hey, maybe the regular season really has challenged us, and now we can not cruise through the playoffs as you were alluding to, but you're more prepared for the playoffs.
Oh yeah, you're more prepared because it's just like good teams like I know in the other sports, basketball, soccer, and things like that. They tend to try to schedule tough opponents near the end of the season to get them ready for the playoffs. Because they're out of conference games. They don't mean as much except for your overall record, but you get to play against great competition so that you're ready to play that kind of competition in the postseason.
Without a doubt. Mainland at Winslow, 6 p.m. on Friday, and then we'll return right here on Cape Atlantic Live for the regular season finale against Delsea the week after. Again, that'll be at the Corral next Friday at 6 p.m. Coach, good luck on Friday. It's going to be a good one. Looking forward to seeing you guys rise to the challenge against one of the best teams in the state. And again, we'll talk next week.
Sounds good, Nick. Thank you very much.
Absolutely. It's the Chuck Smith Show right here on Cape Atlantic Live, presented by Ulmer's Appliance Service.